Hi guys, it's Danny from the ScrapFX design team for May 2021. Today I'm doing an art journal page in my ScrapFX junk journal. So I've pre-gessoed the pages and I've got my colour palette picked out, and I'm going to use a small jelly plate here, just adding some of the cooler blues down and going to layer some of the colours down. I'm going to use the Chevron feather stamp here, and I'm just adding that stamp to the jelly plate and then pressing the excess paint onto my page, and then basically using that jelly plate like a stamp, and I'm pressing the jelly plate directly onto my page. This is a great way to print in your journal because you can use it like a stamp basically, but it also gives you this really random textured background as well, which is really quite interesting and something that you're just not going to get with a paintbrush. So adding some darker blues in here now in the colours, and I'm going to use the Leafy circle stamp. Now ScrapFX stamps are fabulous on these jelly plates because they've got a sort of foamy texture. They just work so well on the jelly plate, so they're a great accessory to add texture, but also work really well just as a stamp. So you can see that I'm using it in both ways. I'm stamping off the excess paint, but I'm also adding that stamp to grab some texture onto my jelly plate. And then I'm using that as a stamp to create some colour tones across the page and sort of evenly distribute that darker blue across the page as well. It's a really fun, messy technique that everyone should have a little go at. Now I'm adding a little bit of pink here. I've got far too much pink paint out. And I'm going to use the seaweed stamp. This was released last month and it's such a gorgeous little stamp. So we're just adding a little bit of pink across my pages and then using that jelly plate again like a stamp and pressing it, printing out the excess paint onto my journal. And also using the brayer to get a bit of colour distribution onto the page. So you can see all this gorgeous texture that's coming up on my background now, and it's really giving it some depth to the pages. So here I'm using collage circles. It's a little foam stamp set and some archival ink, and I'm just distributing some hot pink across the page. And then this one is called zebra circles. So I've got a little bit of a circle theme happening in my background. This is a ScrapFX stencil. This one's called String of Beads, and I'm going to stencil that across all the pages. Now the background is quite textured and has quite depth to it and is very busy. So this one is just giving us a little area for our eye to rest on. And I've used the same blue colours that I've got in the background, so they really all work together quite well. I've got it in my head that I'm going to use the transparencies, so I wanted a pop of colour where I was going to place these transparencies. So I'm using some fluoro paint here, and because it's translucent it still shows up all that texture that we've just printed on the background, and will also give me a pop of colour to put the transparencies onto. You can see the cutout die area on the back page, which will also give me a little bit of interest. Just a little bit of paint splatter there. And so this one is the transparency collage, faces collage. So I'm just cutting out a couple of strips and I'm going to audition them across my page and work out where I want them. See how it's going to work and how it's going to look. I really like that pop of colour underneath, but I still feel like they need something. A little bit of visual interest there, so I'm going to ponder about that a little bit longer. and I'm using a text script here from ScrapFX. Decided to go back over my stenciled areas already and just make some marks around those string of beads. And then using the text stencil here just to do a little bit of white stenciling across our pink fluoro band, which really makes it pop across there. Now I'm using a white Posca pen, I'm just making some random mark making along with the pink belt as well. This is the silhouette ladies, and I'm actually using the cutout piece, the positive piece, and using it as a mask to get our little silhouettes. This is a really great way of quietening the background down a bit, but you still get that pop of colour in the silhouette when you lift the mask off. Doesn't that look fabulous? So I'm just edging around now with that navy blue and just sort of evenly distributing that colour around, and I'm just doing the second silhouette on the opposite page. I'm really loving those ladies, they look fabulous with that pop of fluoro pink and blue. It's a really nice contrast. And again, just edging around the tag and the rest of the edges of the journal pages just to evenly distribute that navy blue so that it has a bit more uniformity and becomes one with the page. So a little bit more mark making on the back side of the tag and the last page of the journal. I'm using a fluoro pink Posca pen here to outline the silhouettes on the navy, just sort of a scratchy line around the silhouettes. And again, auditioning those pieces, the transparencies across the board there, making sure that I've got the right sort of pieces to sit across the page. And this is when I decided to use a bit of coloured thread. So I've just grabbed some of the neon threads that I have, and I'm just pulling some random cotton off the reels, bunching it all up, and I'm going to stick that underneath the transparency. Just gives a little bit more texture and interest under those transparencies, and I really liked the way that looked, so I decided to go ahead with that. And I'm gluing that down with a Liquitex matte medium. So you need to use quite a bit of glue, but you don't need to panic because the matte medium will dry translucent, and so you won't get that cloudiness, and it really does adhere the pieces down, but you have a little bit of time to play around and get them in the right position. So once I've got that cotton glued down, I'm just sort of pushing down the transparencies onto the glued area, and I'm now pulling off some more cotton for the next page. And again, same deal here, I'm going to glue that down with a matte medium, using quite a bit of glue to make sure that the cotton is quite adhered to the page, and making sure that there's a lot of glue over the top as well. And again, just pushing that transparencies on top of the thread, and if you look very closely you can see the thread popping through the transparencies, and it just looks super cool. I liked the idea of the cotton sort of connecting all the faces together. So here I'm using the Artwords Transparency from ScrapFX. I felt that it needed a little bit more text or something in the background there, and I really liked that strong bold print. So just deciding on what to do there. I'm using a pink Posca to go back over, and I'm just quickly journaling about threads and friendships and how they can tangle and connect to others, but of course, you know, the threads will still be there. So I just wanted a little bit of white text on that blue. I thought it just needed a little pop of colour because there was so much going on in that background. It sort of, those blue areas looked a little quiet. So I'm not really writing clearly there, but I just felt that it needed some sort of text with the gel pen. And so again, just writing a little bit of text on the blue areas of the tag, making sure that's nice and dry before I turn the page so I don't smudge. And then just going back over the silhouettes with the white pen as well. Really just making sure that those silhouettes pop out from the page as well. So again, auditioning those transparencies with the text in the center of the page and making it fit. So I'm just going to cut some of the wording off because those pages are sort of odd shapes, and I decide that I need to cut the text in half so that it doesn't interfere with the opening and shutting of the journal, just so I avoid that spine area basically. So again, just glue that down with some matte medium, and I've used quite a bit of glue there, as you can see. And also making sure that I brush that glue over the top of the transparencies as well. Just gives you a nice adhesion to the page. But also allows you to move the transparencies about too, so that you can make sure that your wording's nice and straight as well. You have time to move things about. So I did leave this art journal page overnight to dry because it does look a little cloudy now, but it does dry clear. So just getting that wording and trimming off any excess transparency there. You can just see me sliding those transparencies around and making sure that they're sitting nice and straight where I need them. That bold text really works well on the background. Again, just going back over the transparencies, making sure they're stuck down nicely. And that's basically it. Very easy art journal page. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave me a comment and thumbs up, and we'll see you next time.